Hey, how you guys doing? Joe McCall. Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast. Got a special guest on for you today. His name is Eric Brewer, and I'm telling you, a lot of people are talking about Eric. I'm hearing it from left and right, all over. Everybody's talking about this new strategy that I promise you, this is not something you've ever heard or seen before. We're all familiar with wholesaling. We're all familiar with buy and hold investing, the BRRRR strategy. There's a bunch of strategies out there. Fix and flip. Buy and hold, short sales, foreclosures, buying properties, wholesaling them, lease options, owner financing, all that stuff. But here, Eric is one of the biggest players in our space right now, and he's finding these incredible source of deals that nobody else knows about. He's doing these deals that it's just this is crazy. This is a new strategy that he's kind of perfected. And I've been hearing a bunch of people talk about it, and I wanted to get Eric on the podcast to just dive deeper into what is this? What are you talking about? Novation, what? And so he's going to explain why this is so powerful, but you need to pay attention right now on this podcast. I want you to get your pen and paper out because you are throwing away so many deals right now that you could be profiting from. All right. I'm talking about doubling or tripling your deal flow without doing any more marketing than what you're currently doing. In fact, we're going to talk about maybe how you can even find these deals without doing any marketing at all. So I'm going to bring Eric on. I'm going to talk a little bit about, there he is, Eric. How are you, sir?
Good, Joe. How are you?
Awesome. Now, guys, Army vet, thank you so much for your service, Eric. Glad that you got to know you a little bit as we've been talking about what you've been doing. Family man, you've got 5 kids, a 6th on the way. Is that right?
That is correct.
You've done over I'm looking at my notes here. We were talking earlier. You've been doing deals since 2006.
Yeah.
You've done over 3,000 deals in Pennsylvania and Maryland. So you're up in the New England area. Is that right?
I am in the South Central Pennsylvania area. So I'm in an area, Pennsylvania's here, Maryland's here. I sit right on the Pennsylvania-Maryland border.
Okay, cool. Company is called Integrity First Home Buyers. And I think that says a lot about your values and what you do as a company and the things that you actually do care about. You got a big operation. You got 40-something members on your team. You're doing $350 deals a year. But I just want to tell you guys what Eric's going to be talking about here. Even the beginning investor can do. You know, Eric's been around a long time. He's been doing a lot of deals. And this is why I've been hearing more and more about this. And I'm like, I got to get Eric on to talk about it. But even though he's got a big company, big organization, he's doing a lot of deals. Eric, this is something the beginning investor can do for themselves in small town Iowa, right?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Novations, I've only been teaching this for about 12 months now, maybe a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And the majority of people that I've taught it to are seasoned investors that are looking to add on or bolt on to their existing business. And the reality is, I've been talking about this with you and a few other people, is that it really should probably just be the new way of wholesaling. I've actually started to call it Wholesaling 2.0.
Yes.
I think if I were to go back and start my investing career over again, which I don't want to do. It's 17 years. I've taken a lot of lumps, but I would start this way because we'll talk about that a little bit. And you and I chatted before we got started about how it just opens up so many more opportunities on the seller side of our sales funnel and also on the buyer side. So you literally, if you wanted to start getting into real estate today, you could start with Novations.
Yeah. This is, I like that phrase, wholesaling 2.0. This is a completely different way to do deals that very few people know about. And this is how you can go leaps and bounds above and beyond your competition. All right. So let's talk about this strategy. You call it the Brewer method, but it's a strategy you've kind of perfected. It's called Novations. And now that may sound complicated or technical, but let's talk a little bit about what that is. And how is this different than wholesaling? So can you start with that? And you use a great analogy about the needle in a haystack.
Yeah. Everybody likes the needle in the haystack, right? Because it's, I think it really resonates with people. So if you think about the difference between wholesale is this, when we wholesale a deal, we look for a needle in a haystack.
Yes.
That needle in the seller haystack is we need to find a super distressed seller that has a house that needs work that'll sell for a deep discount. It's literally a very small percentage of people that own homes.
And there's tons and tons of people looking for the little tiny needle in a haystack.
Correct. So once we are successful at being able to find a seller that has a house that needs work, that's super distressed and will sell for a discount, then we have to go out and sell that needle from that haystack to a completely different needle in the buyer's haystack. And that needle on the buyer's side is a investor that can pay cash or has hard money or private money, is willing to do the work to fix the house up with the hopes that they can either resell it for a profit or refinance it and keep it as a rental and have it cash flow, right?
And there's fewer needles in this. I mean, the market's been shifting the last few months, right?
I would tell you in most markets, what's happening right now is that the buy and hold investor, the deals that were cash flowing when the rates were 4% probably aren't cash flowing at 8%. The guy that was fixing and flipping houses and seeing multiple offers, over list, even full price, that's not happening right now. So a lot of those investors that were buying the last 3 years are saying, I'm going to be a little conservative with my offer because I'm worried that 3 months down the road. I was just with someone at a mastermind yesterday.
Yeah.
He lost $175,000 on the last flip that he sold in Reno, Nevada. Seasoned guy. Yeah. Been in the business a long time, does good rehabs, bought it right 3 months ago. Literally between May and today, those values have dropped almost 30%.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're trying to sell to a lot of the people that have been buying our homes for cash the last several years, there's some people that have said, I'm not going to mess in this market. I don't want to catch a falling knife.
Yeah.
Or they're saying, I'll buy it, but I need to plan for going over my renovation cost. And if the house sells for 15 or 20% less, I want to be safe. As a result, I'm going to offer you significantly less than what you're asking, maybe even less than what you paid for the property. So it's gotten really, really difficult to underwrite a wholesale deal these days.
So with traditional wholesaling, you're looking for this little needle in a haystack of a very motivated seller that has a lot of equity, and you're competing against 100 other wholesalers that are looking for that little needle. Yes. And then you're selling it to a buyer who's also this needle in a haystack. And now that buyer, there's fewer of them, and they're more picky than ever on what they buy. So their buy price has gone down with the market shifts, right? So how do you fix that? What's different between the Brewer method of Novations and regular wholesaling? Why is this Wholesaling 2.0?
Because we're actually going to buy from the haystack and sell to the haystack.
Oh my, that sounds good to me.
How does that work?
Yeah.
So, so here's what'll happen. So if we talked about like the wholesale deal needs a bunch of work, super, distressed seller, house is pretty messed up. Novations work from what I would call condition-wise livable up to lovable. So it's in a condition that would get past a home inspection. It'll pass FHA and VA appraisals all the way up to, newly renovated. So now how many of those homes are out there? No. And when we're selling homes or doing novation deals on properties that are 250 or higher, we can pay around 85 to 88% of current as is market value. And by as is, I don't mean no inspections, no appraisals. I mean in its current condition without rehab. That's the biggest thing with the Brewer method is we're also doing deals on homes that we're doing revenue without renovation. So a lot of people may have heard of Novations a few years ago, 10 years ago, and that included like partnering with the seller. It was a fix and flip strategy. This is not what I'm teaching. What we're looking at is revenue without rehab. We are not doing any rehab or renovation to the property.
So you're not doing any renovations or rehab. That's really important to understand. And other wholesalers, they're trying to buy these properties at 60, 70 cents on the dollar. You're buying them at 80, 85 cents on the dollar.
Correct.
All right. And you're able to do that because your buyers can pay more.
The haystack. The haystack pays big money, right? Because let me tell you who the haystack is today. This changes. The haystack might have been a hedge fund a year ago. The haystack might have been a conventional buyer that was super excited about buying a house because interest rates were low. Here's the haystack today. FHA, VA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac borrowers that need a little bit of seller's help. They have to get an appraisal and they need a home inspection. Those are the most active buyers in today's market. You want to know why? The reason
financing.
why, yeah, and they couldn't participate in the market. They couldn't take advantage of the low interest rates in 2020.
Yeah.
Because if you made an FHA offer with appraisals and inspections on a property in the last 2 years, you were likely to not even get responded to.
Yeah.
The list agent wouldn't call you back. I tend to think if you were a buyer that was FHA approved and you called 20 buyers agents, said, "Hey, Joe, great news. I'm approved FHA. I need a little bit of seller's help and I got to get an appraisal. And it's real important to me that I get a home inspection. Would you run around and show me some houses so that I can make a bunch of offers?" You'd go, "Eric, I love you, but no way I'm doing that. We're never going to get you a deal. Why don't you wait until school up?"
Because there were so many other buyers that were paying cash, that had conventional financing, that could make offers with no contingencies.
Correct. Appraisal waivers. They were waiving home inspections. They were paying above list. But an FHA borrower with very little money down, maybe all they have is their 3.5%, right? They couldn't do all that stuff. They couldn't put a $10,000 non-refundable deposit down.
Yep.
They have been unable to participate in the real estate markets the last 2 years. And now is their chance. Now they can actually, and we're seeing this with our Novations. We're seeing list minus 5K sellers help, list minus 3% sellers help. We're seeing that deal after deal after deal after deal. And as long as you underwrite it when you do the deal in the beginning, you'll have more than enough profit.
So there's still a huge demand. Everybody's kind of wondering about that. Well, the market's going down. Are you still selling houses right now, Eric? But is there still people wanting to buy houses right now?
Yeah. Particularly that buyer that we just talked about.
Yep.
FHA, VA is a really, really big one because the VA loan's probably the most desirable out there. It's got the lowest cost of PMI. It's 100% financing. They get very privileged interest rates for being a veteran. But again, they could not participate in the market the last 2 years. So a VA buyer now can get a good rate, 100% financing, a reduced or eliminated PMI. It's typically paid on the front. So they're out paying top dollar or very close to it for good listings right now.
Okay. So you can offer more than your competition can. So you're getting more deals and you have a much bigger pool of buyers that you can sell them to. But how does that work? I mean, a normal wholesaler, talk about the traditional way to wholesale where you get a property under contract. You have to put a bunch of earnest money down, proof of funds, and then you have to hopefully find a buyer to sell your contract to. And there's all kinds of hassles with that, right? Finding the right title company that can help you with it. How is this different?
So some of it's not that different, except I can tell you one of the bigger things, and depending on who, will teach you where you get your advice from, one of the bigger projects when you become a wholesaler is building out that buyer's list. Right. So there's a number of different ways that we go through building that buyer's list. The great part about doing the Brewer method with Novations is we're taking our deals to the MLS.
Oh,
the MLS is the best buyer's list in the world.
Yes,
Let me tell you who shops the MLS. Retail buyers.
My wife does. Yeah.
Yeah. Who pay retail prices.
Yeah.
And the other thing I've come to find is the investors that pay the most are first-time real estate investors, right? But if you look at any way we build a buyer's list, we go and we say, let me look at all the cash transactions in the last year in this particular zip code. Well, guess who's not on that list? Mm-hmm. The first-time real estate investor. Yeah. They haven't bought a property yet, so you can't search for them. You can't find them in the tax records. So when we take our deals to the MLS, we're exposing them to first-time investors, right? Because occasionally we'll get a cash offer from an investor that pays close to retail. Right? We've all seen that before. There's investors out there that pay close to retail and we go, how the heck are they going to make money? I don't know. It's not my responsibility. They're not on my buyer's list. Whatever real estate agent encouraged them to write that offer needs to answer that question, not me. So we eliminate the whole big, some people would tell you reverse wholesaling. You start with building your buyer's list. We've eliminated that whole project from this segment of the business. We're simply taking it to the MLS, which is the biggest and best buyer's list in the world.
All right. So you have to get a license to do this, right? You have to be a realtor or have a broker's license or
neither.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does that work?
You need to have a relationship and have access to a real estate agent that is licensed. Okay. Now, if you're licensed, it makes your job a little bit easier, right? Yeah. You don't have to go out and find a real estate agent and explain it to them and educate them on it and manage them and help them negotiate and do all of that stuff. If you are licensed, it's a little bit easier for you to start doing Novations. If you're not, no problem, no big deal. We actually teach and coach people how to find a real estate agent, how to educate them on how the process works, how to get them the proper documentation to make sure that they're compliant, you're compliant, everybody's safe and sound. But all you need to be able to do is have access to a licensed agent that can list your properties in the MLS, negotiate on your behalf, and get the transaction settled the same way they would a normal retail listing.
Okay, so do you, when you find a seller who wants to sell their house, but maybe they want too much for it or there's too much equity in it, how does it work? Do you make them an offer, and then do you have to close on the deal then, or then buy it and then turn around and sell it? How does
No, so it's a good question. So what we teach and what's been successful for me is I lead all of these conversations. People don't call and say, "Hey, I heard about your Novation offer. How's that work?" They call and say, "I want a cash offer. I want to sell it as is and close in 7 days." Yeah. So we lead with that. Okay. Right. And then the difference is that, for most wholesalers, they reach a point where the seller won't come down anymore and they can't come up. And what do? We say, "Joe, if you change your mind," which, by the way, Joe never changes his mind, right? If he's got a nice house and he's got a bunch of equity and he's not distressed, do those people ever really call and go, "The more I thought about it, Joe, no, 290 was just unrealistic. I'm going to go with your offer of 210. Yeah. No. The only thing that does happen is maybe something in Joe's circumstances changed, and now he's got a higher level of motivation than he had maybe a few months ago when we met. But that normally doesn't happen. The average Novation seller has a pretty nice property. They don't have any visible signs of distress. I buy tons and tons and tons of data from all these motivated sellers, from these, predictive analytics and all these things that can project who's going to want to sell a house at a discount. The majority of the Novation people that I get have no visible signs of distress. Yeah. They're not behind on payments. They're not, facing the tax man. The house isn't all beat up. They're not going through divorce. Now, some of them, yeah, but the majority of people, we just did a deal today that we'll make $110,000 on a Novation. Retired police chief, relocating, already bought his new house, and he just wants the thing that was most important to him was certainty. He sold us his house for $385,000. We listed it for $489,000. And the tally's still running. We'll have 5 or 6 offers by the time it's all said and done, and it should sell in the low 5s.
Let's talk about the numbers then real quick here. What is an example deal? You just gave a good one there, but maybe give a simpler example of a typical Novation Eric Brewer method deal.
Yeah, so if you think about it, I use that number of 250, right? So if you take a house that has an MLS offer or an MLS value of 250, meaning you take it in its current condition, you market it with a retail agent, you allow inspections, you allow appraisals, you allow all the FHA, VA financing. So 250, we found that anybody that does reasonable volume, it could be 1 listing a month. If you go to a licensed agent, by the way, I don't recommend, and we can talk about this later, do not use a flat fee listing service. Let me tell you why. In today's market, and we're not quite at a buyer's market, but they've gotten some of the leverage back. Buyer's agents have also been completely disrespected the last 3 years, right? They've been showing 15 homes, writing 13 offers, getting 13 no thank yous. So here's what I can tell you. Most buyer's agents, when they see a flat fee listing service, there's a couple reasons why they may not ever show your listing. One, there's a chance they're dealing with an emotional seller that has no real estate experience, doesn't understand real estate law, will try and back out of the transaction 15 times during escrow. There's a good chance also that seller or that flat fee listing service is going to ask the buyer's agent to take a reduced commission. Right. So a lot of buyer's agents won't even show your Novations if they're listed with a flat fee listing service. Okay. Don't do it. It's bad news. So what we do is we list with a licensed agent. We use Keller Williams. Okay. Right. Nationwide brand, great real estate agents. Our real estate agent we use has been in the business 15 years. You can pay them 1 to 1.5% listing agent commission. If you're giving them 1 or more listings a month, it's a good source of revenue for them. They don't have to go out and get the listing. You're bringing it to them. Yeah. Right. And they get to deal with an investor who can make inspection repairs, understands the business. They're not dealing with an emotional seller. Okay. So 1.5%, 2.5% buyer's agent commission. That's 4%. Let's just say you have another 1% in transfer tax, title insurance, you're participating in some of the closing costs. So a total of 5%. So if you sell a house for $250, it costs you $12,500 to sell, right? We said that you could pay 88%. So that's a total of 12%. So now your profit on 250 is 7%. That's $17,500, paying 88% for a listing, taking it to the MLS, making no repairs, doing a wholesale style transaction. What I mean by wholesale is I didn't pay for it, I didn't renovate it, and I got paid.
So what if the house is worth $250 as is?
Yeah,
that's what you're going to list. What is the seller getting on that deal?
They would get 88% net, $220.
So that's about what they're going to get anyway.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing:
if they sold it on their own,
they might actually. Sounds a little crazy. They might actually get more dealing with you. If a seller called a real estate agent and said, "I want to sell it as is," they would list it no FHA. Go into your MLS right now, and here's some really good advice you can give to a real estate agent, and they'll love you for it. If one way to get listings moving, if you go into most of the listings in the MLS right now that are active, it says conventional financing only. Why? Because for the last 3 years, that was the right way to list your property. You didn't want FHA offers. You didn't want to get tied up in an FHA deal where you might get a couple repairs when your seller could have sold it for cash or conventional financing. So if they called an agent and said, "I want to sell it as is, no inspections, no FHA financing," they're probably going to sell it for less. So they might sell it for $235. When you net out commissions, they walk away with less money than what you can offer them. So you're actually, particularly the guys in the rental space and multifamily, know what forced appreciation is. This is a little version of forced appreciation by simply allowing FHA, VA borrowers to buy your property and permitting them to do home inspections and appraisals. We're forcing some more equity because that buyer will pay more.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And also sometimes I guess a realtor, if a seller were to call a realtor, the realtor is going to tell them, all right, you need to paint the walls, you need to take everything off of the walls and paint the walls and replace the carpet and clean everything and update everything. So you're telling the seller you don't have to really do much to the house at all, right?
I mean, it's deal by deal specific. The nicer properties that are, cared for, there are some deals where it's just a little messy. They got, I see the pictures come back from our acquisitions guy, and last night's, dinner's still sitting on the stovetop, and they got laundry sitting in the corners. We'll actually come in, and a lot of our Novation deals we'll offer to straighten up for them. We'll send in a professional cleaner, and we'll help them organize. Generally what we do, if the house has a garage or a basement, we're taking all of the clutter. We'll do it. It'll cost us $500 to $1,000 to send a moving crew in there and declutter the house and consolidate everything into the garage or the basement. But that's few and far between. The majority of these homes, right, are in great condition. That's the thing. People go, what about hold on for a second. Remember, we're talking about a completely different avatar of a seller. These homes are generally in really good condition. They're not the houses that we're normally doing where there's a lot of repair. It's messed up. There's mold in the basement. There's a tarp on the roof. That's not this deal. We're wholesaling retail houses to retail buyers. That's really, in a nutshell, what a Novation is.
Yeah, and this is kind of like, you might have heard the phrase in the past, wholetailing, right?
Yes.
But you're not buying the house, right? So again, just so I'm clear, you're not using any of your own money to close on the deal, and you're not really doing any major repairs to the property either. You're not buying the property.
No, the only thing that you're on the hook for is if you accept an FHA offer with someone that's doing a home inspection, you're going to have FHA possible repairs, which is like literally GFCIs, handrails, peeling paint on a basement window. I call it like punch list style repairs, right? They're literally $100, $200 a piece. They're very simple repairs. And then what I like to do in our Novations is we do a home inspection up front.
Okay.
And the home inspection company that we use does what they call significant findings. And they'll put those things on the front page of the report. Say, hey, we found these safety issues, or, there's a roof issue, or there's a furnace issue. And then we negotiate that on the front end of the deal, because what I don't want to do is get into a Novation deal and find out 2 or 3 weeks into the deal that me and the buyer don't see eye to eye on repairs.
Okay.
Right. So we get a home inspection done, put it right in the listing documents. When they make an offer, say, hey, Joe, I really appreciate you guys putting together an offer for us. You may notice that in the associated docs, we had a full home inspection that my seller paid for. You might see that there's a few things in there. I'd love for your buyer to review that. And if you think that there's any repairs you may want done, let's go ahead and address that now so we don't have issues somewhere down the road.
Okay.
The second thing that we do, right, because this is a big pivot. The biggest pivot, you said, oh, is there a lot more work? What's the difference? We are selling to a retail buyer. So for wholesalers out there, there's a different process to selling to a retail buyer. One of the big things that'll cause you frustration is when a loan falls apart. And a loan can fall apart because of maybe a crappy pre-approval. They did a phone app over the phone with the lender, gave them some information. They said, yeah, it sounds good, you're approved, but they didn't collect their income docs. They didn't verify their source of their down payment. So one of the things we include in anybody that we work with on Novations is what we call a buyer's disclosure. Everybody's heard of a seller's disclosure, right? It's 25 pages you got to fill out about, did the basement ever get water? Is there termites? How old's the roof? When was the last time you peed in the potty, right? All of that stuff. Well, we created a buyer's disclosure that the buyer signs and authorizes with their offer that gives us permission to get this information from the lender: credit score, source of down payment, verified assets, and debt to income ratio. Because I found for the first 10 years of my life, all I did was retail fix and flips. And every time I got bad news is because one of those four things went wrong with a loan.
Okay.
So I said, well, why do I wait to find out until 3 weeks?
Some of this stuff may take time. With normal wholesaling 1.0, you have 30 days. You have a deadline, right? Do you have more time then on these types of deals where you can take care of these things? Or if the buyer falls out, you have more time? Okay,
correct.
Good, you do. So talk about the paperwork at a high level. I'm still trying to figure out, how does a realtor going to want to work with you when you don't actually technically own the house? How does the paperwork work at a high level?
So it's very similar. I know there's people all across the country. Like, I can list my wholesale deals in the MLS, right? So if I get a wholesale deal, it's not a good novation, it needs a bunch of work, it's kind of a messed up property, I can take those deals and list in the MLS with equitable ownership. So depending on the state that you're in, the market that you're in, that may or may not be possible. Novations is possible in every market, and I'll explain a little bit about that more. But the contract is, everybody goes, Eric, let me see your novation contract. It literally is just like every other wholesale contract. It has one sentence in it. It says, buyer reserves the right to novate property with no advance notice to the seller. That's simple, super simple, right? That gives you the authority and the permission to novate it. Really where we find the majority of deals that, because I get calls all the time from people that tried to do a novation, they get halfway through the deal and then they're missing some paperwork, their deal's blowing up, and they'll reach out and need help. And normally that happens at the second, third, and fourth step of a novation. So the contract's super simple. You can literally take that sentence I gave you, put it in your wholesale contract, and you'll have the written authority to do that. The real thing you have to do is you got to be super transparent with the seller. You can't slip that language in there, have them sign it, not disclose it, take it to the MLS, have 30 people that want to come to the house for a showing and not explain it to them. Your seller's going to get upset and your deal is probably going to blow up. Okay. So step one is put that sentence in your contract. Step two is understand the language that's effective in disclosing this to a seller and is likely to convince them to allow you to do this, right? And that's the other thing with wholesaling. I mean, if we're just being honest, there's always this sort of gray area song and dance that we go and we convince the seller, I'm going to buy the house and I'm going to fix it up. I'm going to make it so nice. And then after we get the deal, we go, hey, Joe, I need to bring my contractor by the house. I need to bring my capital partner by the house. And then we bring 11 people to the house and walk them through with the hopes that they're going to buy it for more than I paid. Yeah. With novations, because we're taking it to the open market and we need reasonable access to be able to bring retail buyers through, you have to disclose to the seller what your intentions are. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I really enjoy about novations is there's no surprises.
Yeah.
We're being very matter of fact and transparent with the seller on the front end.
Okay.
We're telling them right up front that, hey, I need to take this to the open market in order for me to get you the additional money that you're looking for. So it really eliminates a lot of fallout. It eliminates a lot of bad publicity. It eliminates a lot of seller frustration, because we're basically saying, Joe, I'll give you 150. And you're going, Eric, it's not going to work. And I go, well, I do have another program. We call it our equity protection program. And in some situations like yours, where a seller has a pretty nice house and our cash offer doesn't work for them, we can get you sometimes $30,000, $40,000 more if you'll just be flexible with me on two things. And they'll go, well, what are the two things? Then I'll say, I just need reasonable access. I say that, I don't say showings, because showings is real estate agent language.
Yeah.
And I say, Joe, I'd also need your permission to take the property to the open market. I say open market, not MLS, because MLS is real estate agent language. And then obviously, if they ask more questions about that, we'll get a little bit more granular with them about how that works. But if they give you, those two things, you can make the deal work. And then you'd ask about timing. The language that we use is, Joe, we're normally able to get deals like this closed within 60 to 90 business days. And again, you got to remember at this point, because we started at a low offer, most of these people that are great Novation candidates are saying things like, Eric, that all sounds great, but I'm not going to give it away. Or, Joe, this all sounds really good, but I'm not in any hurry. So when someone says I'm not in any hurry, and then I ask them for 60 to 90 business days, do you think we're on the same page? Hey, Joe, you told me you weren't in any hurry. That's why I'm thinking this program might be a good fit for you.
Yeah.
I kind of get the sense that maybe money is more important to you right now than a couple days on the contract. Am I reading that correctly, or am I off there? And I go, no. I don't care if you close this afternoon, Joe. I'm not selling it for 150.
Yeah.
Okay, I read you loud and clear. Well, then you might just be a good fit for our EPP program. But I might be getting ahead of myself, Joe. I'm not even sure your house would qualify for this.
Yeah.
And I go, what do you mean it wouldn't qualify? What do I have to do to qualify?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, this is so good, man. Yeah. Really good question. All right. So talk about the other steps. I think we stopped on step 3 or something like that.
So step 1 is you get the property under contract. It's literally, that's wholesale ABCs, right? Like you're getting the seller to agree to a price. You're disclosing what your intentions are in the contract. I'm going to take it to the open market. I need reasonable access.
It's not a listing agreement. It's a contract.
Correct. Then about half of the time we're getting a limited power of attorney.
Okay.
If I get a limited power of attorney, or an attorney in fact, they're the same thing. Some people will tell you they're two different. They're not. The power of attorney names the attorney in fact. They're literally the same document. So if that's the case, I am actually able to, or the POA is able to sign all of the listing documents, right? And then it goes active in the MLS. Okay. We get an acceptable offer from a third-party buyer, right? Once we get an acceptable offer from a third-party buyer, you are not able to have two enforceable contracts in play at the same time, right? So we have an A to B contract with the seller. I now have an A to C offer that I want to ratify, because that's how I'm going to make my money. That's how I get paid. So when that situation happens, you have to, what we use is a novation addendum, and the novation addendum conditionally releases the original agreement in lieu of the A to C contract, because I can't, if I signed this A to C contract, it would be null and void because I had an enforceable A to B contract in play at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So we release A to B, we ratify A to C, and then that A to C contract goes off to the lender and the title company. And that's what we use to drive towards settlement 30 or 60 days later.
And how do you get paid?
So good question. If you look at the novation addendum, it's a conditional release, and it says, Joe, that original contract that you and I had for $200,000, that was no fees, no commissions, no inspections. We're releasing that in lieu of this new contract that's got commissions, it's got appraisals, it's got inspections. You know what? All of that is on me. All of that extra crap is on me. And then if there's some additional money that shakes out at the end, that's how I'll get paid. Right? So you have a 200 contract with the seller, you have a 235 contract with a new buyer, you net out commissions, say, of $15,000. So the net on that A to C contract's 220. You have your original contract with the seller of 200. you net the difference of 20,000 in that deal. And on most HUDs at settlement companies, it shows up as a release fee.
Okay.
That's how I've seen it most often paid. And it's technically because you charged them basically $20,000 to get out of that original deal to do this third party deal. So it shows up as a release fee on the HUD.
So you get paid on the HUD, FHA, the banks don't have any problem with this. They're not like, who's this Eric Brewer guy? How is he involved with this? How is he? It's all handled. And you have the title companies that do this for you?
Yeah.
Do you go find a different title company in every market that you're in, or do you have nationwide title companies that help you with this?
So we operate in 2 markets. So I have, now I've been doing it since 2011. So literally, I think every title company in my hometown's done a handful of them, so they don't have any issues. But for most people, when you take this to a title company, they're going to have no clue what you're talking about, right? So what I suggest is, particularly for people that are already doing deals, you go to your title company and say, hey, I want to start doing novations. You're going to say, what is that? We'll give you all the documents, all of the language, all of the addendums, and you get them to understand the concept. And then we're very successful because, particularly on the deals that we have POA for, we'll say, hey, Joe, appreciate you and your buyers writing up an offer on our listing at 123 Main Street. I'm super excited to get that deal wrapped up for you. Hey, real quick, before I do that, you may have noticed that my seller is using a POA. They're really trying to maximize convenience. They don't want to be caught in the back and forth of all the documents, negotiating and all that stuff. So they've assigned a power of attorney that works over at ABC Title Company. I know it would go a long way towards getting your deal ratified if your buyer would be okay at settling there. That way my seller doesn't have to run around. The POA can settle for him and sign all the docs. It's just super easy for them. Can I count on you to do that if I can get that deal wrapped up today? And you'll see that majority of the time, it just makes good sense, right? Like, sure. They're going to go, yeah, I understand. You know, I deal with sellers with POAs. I'm sure my buyer will be fine. Now you're settling at your title company. That title company, understands novations. They've probably done, several of them for you after you've been doing them for a year or so, and you have less issues. But you're going to have some of the time where, a title company for the buyer who's never seen one of these deals, you're going to have to walk them through the process and explain to them how the deal works. So, it's not super complicated. I remember I was doing wholesale deals 10 years ago. And back then, no title companies wanted to do assignments. They thought they were shady. They were illegal. They were against real estate law, and it was only because it was new. Now every title company in the country does wholesale deals and assignments with no problem. But you are going to have a little bit of a learning curve to get title companies on board. But again, we've done them in New York State. I mean, it's probably one of the more difficult.
Yeah, you've done them in New York State. Come on, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah, we have people. I haven't done them. We have students that have done tons of deals in California. I mean, those are the 2 places that lead the nation in making things more difficult than they need to be. So you just have to, first 1 or 2 deals are probably going to be a little touch and go. You're going to have to explain it to them. You're going to have to, educate them on it. But once you get through those first couple deals, there's nothing shady. There's nothing illegal. Novation's been around for 200 years. No one's just ever taken it and applied it to a wholesale version of real estate. So
this will work in almost any market. Is there any market where it won't work?
Not that I'm familiar with. I got a lot of people that were California this, California that, New York this, New York that. I've done over 50 deals in Rochester, New York, with no issues. We got a bunch of students in just outside of New York City that do a ton of these deals. And actually I think the largest novation deal we've ever seen, which was over $200,000, was done in California by one of our students. So no, I'm not familiar with, it's literally, novation means the replacement of one contract with another. Mm-hmm. So I don't know any state that doesn't allow the replacement of a contract.
Yeah. All right, so let me ask you one more final question here, I think, Eric, and then I want to talk about how, because I know a lot of people listening to this like, man, how do I do this? I want to learn how to do this. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I got this question going on, like, well, what's the real value that you bring to a seller other than, the convenience of handling the transaction? Why can't a seller just list it with an agent? What value are you bringing by doing this for this? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm going to try and explain this the best way that I can. So our most profitable novation deals are well above our median sales price. And what I mean is, like, in my market, the median sales price is $250. About 8 to 10 times a year, we do $100,000 novation profit deal. And on those deals, the normal, I'm doing one right now. We're going to exit at $525. Our purchase price was $385. After commissions and everything, I'm hoping I'll net 6 figures. And this house is immaculate. The guy literally it's paid off. He doesn't owe taxes. He doesn't owe electric bills. He's already bought a retirement home. We drastically underestimate the value of what you said was, other than the convenience. It doesn't need to be more than that. And I'll give you an example, right? Finish this sentence for me, Joe. We often deal with, once we make over 6 figures, we deal with blank world problems.
First world problems?
Yeah. What do we solve in wholesale? We solve like second or third world problems. I'm losing my house.
Yeah.
My neighbor's house burnt down and my house smells like smoke, right? Or my taxes are 3 years past due and they're going to take the house from me. Think about this, right? Like I use this analogy all the time. If I go to Chick-fil-A, which happens to be my favorite place to eat, and I'm at the back of the line, right? And it's a 7-minute wait, call it a 10-minute wait. I would consider that a first world problem. If they came to the back of the line and say, Mr. Brewer, we recognized your car. Are you here for your normal spicy chicken sandwich? Well, I am. Thanks for asking. Hey, we have this new program where if you pay triple, we'll serve you right now and you can skip the 7-minute wait. I'm probably paying triple every single time. They're solving a first world problem. It's no different with Novations. They're not behind on payments. Their house isn't messed up. But the ability to provide them some certainty, to remove them from a portion or most of the inconvenience that's either real or perceived about selling with a real estate agent, we drastically underestimate that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know any other explanation than that. I don't ask people, why in the world did you let me make $100,000 on your house? So I'm left with an assumption. And the assumption is most people, here's what I believe. Most people think real estate agents, rightfully or wrongfully, do no work and make tons of money. Fair to say?
Yeah.
More people appreciate the risk and the work that an investor has to put in to get paid.
Yeah.
So a lot of sellers will allow us to make $50,000 before they would pay a real estate agent $12,000 to list and sell their home. It's the reality of the situation, right?
Yeah.
So I wish I could give you a bunch of this. And here's the other thing, right? In our sales process, we're normally with the seller 45 minutes to an hour before we're even having really in-depth conversation about pricing. So by the time we've come to the end of the sales conversation, they really should want to sell you the house. If you leave, their hopes of selling leave with it. And then they're back to square one. I got to bring another 3 to 5 investors here. Joe seems like a really sharp guy. I'm not super confident that anybody's going to offer me more money than that. So I'm going to spend all of these hours bringing all these strangers into my house. They're going to ask me all these questions about why I'm selling. And at the end, I'm not going to get what I want for it anyway. If there's a reasonable gap and you've been able to close that gap and give them the amount of money they're comfortable with, they want to do a deal with you, or they should if you have a good sales process.
Yeah.
So the reason is that A, you're solving first world problems, and people with first world problems will pay up for them. Right?
Yeah.
And they should want to do a deal with you if you've done a good job in your sales process. It's just that simple.
Right. I love this because, again, you're not trying to find that needle in a haystack, going back to what we originally started this whole thing with. So there's more sellers you can do these deals with, and there's more buyers that you can do these deals with. So even as the market is shifting and changing, there's still a lot of investors out there looking for these deals. This is a strategy where you can bypass all the competition.
Here's what I'll tell you. Most people find their first deal. Joe, for most investors, if they had a lead that called in that said, I want 90% of Zillow and I completely remodeled my house 5 years ago, what's the average wholesaler going to say to that person?
I can't help you.
Knowing what we know now with Novations, at 90% of Zillow, I probably already have a deal if the house is worth more than $250,000.
That's amazing.
and it's recently been renovated. Well, what's that make it possible for me to do in the retail market? Demand high, full value. So
what if you could send direct mail and marketing to sellers where, hey, I can get you 90% of Zillow?
And not be lying about it, right? A lot of people send that and go, well, it's 90% minus renovations. It's, no, actually, I can pay you 90%. So our best novation deals we actually get from television. And when we compare it to our motivated seller list that I spend tens of thousands of dollars on predictive data, they're often nowhere on those lists to be found. Yeah, because they don't have any of the visible signs of motivation, and you'll generally attract a slightly higher quality seller. So here's let me give you some numbers real quick, because people love to know numbers and all that stuff. And when you look at, let's say, 100 leads, normally in 100 leads, about 10% of those people are a good fit for a wholesale deal, right? 50% of those people aren't selling to you or anybody else in the near future. They have unrealistic pricing expectations. They're 2 years away from making a decision. There's multiple decision makers and they can't agree on what they want to do. So that's 60%. About 40% of 100 net leads we found month after month, year after year, investor after investor, regardless of the market, about 40% of all leads have a decent property that's in relatively good shape, and they're relatively motivated but not super distressed, and there's enough equity there to be able to get a discount and make a deal. So out of every 100 leads, 40 of your leads are a better fit for a wholesale deal than the 10% of people. So even if you closed 5%, that's 2 deals a month, right? You'd have to close 20%. 4 times, you have to be 4 times better closer doing wholesale to get the same amount of deals. And then here's the other part: novation deals all across the country. I've helped over 300 people learn this strategy. The average profit's $26,000. The average profit wholesale across the country is closer to $12,000 to $15,000, and probably going down.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's really, really good. All right, now, Eric, people are wondering, how do I get to work with you? I want to learn how to do this strategy. There's a link right now on the screen. There's also a button down below somewhere where you can click to get on the phone and talk to Eric's team. You have a little program. You've been helping people around the country do this stuff. Still, very, very few people are doing this right now. Very few people are doing this. So Eric, what you have a program called the Brewer Method. What's involved with that? What do people get?
Yeah. So here's what we learned. When we first started this, we sold this course for, I don't know, it's like $2,000 or $3,000. And I gave them all the documents. I recorded some videos, and we had a pretty high success rate. People had a tremendous success, but we found that they had a lot of questions. They'd get into a deal and there'd be a question that popped up that they didn't know how to answer, or a title company would give them some resistance and they need help working through it. And as we answered those questions, and we'd hop on calls and help their sales team with the scripting or overcoming normal objections, what I found is after we got them through about their first 2 to 3 deals, then they were on autopilot. So instead, what we did is we said, hey, this program with the documents just gives them enough information to be dangerous. What if we did 12 weeks worth of training calls? What if we did a 2-hour onboarding call with their entire sales team? What if we gave them access to a private community where they could post questions, do JVs, have the access to people that have done 25 or 30 deals? How much quicker would they get through their first 2 or 3 deals? Would they potentially make a couple more bucks per transaction? And the answer to each and every one of those questions was yes, 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 yes. So now you get a 2-hour onboarding call. We do one every week, where you can bring your entire team. It's done in a group setting, but it's normally, we get about 5 or so people that sign up a week. And it's 2 hours. So there's plenty of time for Q&A. Yeah. We'll train your TCs. We train your lead managers. We train your acquisitions agents. We train your real estate agents. We'll train your title company, right? Then we have 12 weeks of reoccurring sales calls and coaching calls. We found that there's about 12 steps to doing a novation deal, from what's the right language to get a seller to consider our offer, to how do we get it listed, how do we ratify the third-party agreement and then the addendums, all the way down to how do we get paid. So we do that over a 12-week timeline where we do those coaching calls. And then I have, they get access to our website where I've trained and done videos on all 12 of those steps where they can log in at any time and have access to those videos. Or if you hire someone new, we found that part of their onboarding process in their organizations now is to watch those 12 videos to get familiar with how to do these deals.
Now, okay, so you talk about you can have your team on and all that. What if you don't have a team? It's just a single investor by himself, just getting started. Can this work for the new investor as well, who's hungry and who wants to learn the strategy?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think if you were to take if you started today with the normal wholesale model, and I took another investor, they're both smart, they're both hungry, they both can sell, and we both started on the same day, I think my guy or gal would get to their deal quicker than someone trying. Because again, you're shopping, and you have the whole haystack to choose from with sellers rather than the needle in the haystack. And when you sell it, you take it to the MLS.
Let me ask you the question a little differently then. How about this? Yeah. You're on a stranded island, and your family's on a stranded island in Tahiti. All right, good. They're in the Bahamas.
Okay.
And you can't go visit and see them until you do a deal and make 50 grand.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you do?
I would do a novation deal.
I set you up there.
I think if you talk to 50 people that have a nice property that would like to sell in the next couple months, that are willing to hear what you have to say, you're more likely to get offers accepted. Yeah. Here's the deal. Is it easier, Joe? I'll put the script back on you. If you're a home seller and you had to leave 12% equity in the deal, give up a little bit of access, be flexible in the settlement date to 90 days, or sell it to me at 50 cents on the dollar, which one are you more likely to do?
The first one. I would, yeah. Because, and here's the thing, and I know this because I've been in real estate for a long, long time. I'm going to pay that money. I'm going to lose that money anyway.
Somewhere.
If I list it with an agent, and I have to all of the costs involved and all the time involved with selling the house on my own. Yeah. So I'm paying for it anyway.
So it's funny, people ask me, well, why in the world would they let you list it? Why wouldn't they just do it themselves? And I go, well, I don't know. Why did every wholesale deal that you did for the last 5 years not take it to the MLS? You could have sold, you could put a mailbox on a stack of dog poop and it would have sold in the MLS the last 3 years, right? So why wouldn't everybody have taken? Because they want to do a deal with you. And oftentimes there's something about their circumstances or their situation that we might not know that makes them not want to go through selling with a real estate agent. That's it. Yeah. Whether we know it or not, everybody has different motivations. And if we can say, hey, Joe, under normal circumstances, I'd give you 160. If you take advantage of our equity protection program and get you 200, and maybe you don't want to deal with that crap. You might say to me, Eric, if I'm going to go through that, I'll just list it myself. But that's okay. You know what? I would actually tell you, why not put a little bit of work into it? Why not offer FHA financing? I mean, if they come back and they want a couple handrails and for you to paint the basement and replace the furnace, I'm sure you're fine with all that stuff as long as you can get a couple extra bucks, right? And they'll go, no, I don't want to do any of that stuff, Joe. What are you talking about? Oh, I'm sorry. I completely misread the situation. They don't want to deal with any of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
all right. So you're the Brewer method, you're giving them a business in a box and you're holding their hand, right? In setting it up, learning how to do it. I'm imagining with the community, you and in your course itself, you're teaching them what to say to the sellers, how to say it, what not to say. Yeah. Probably got some role plays and examples and things like that, right?
Yeah, we have all the scripts built out. You'll get a full library of documents. I mean, we have every contract, addendum, extension, the buyer's disclosure that I talk about. Like that's something that we normally, don't put a lot of value in. That document alone is worth several $1,000s because what it's helping you do is underwrite the buyer before you accept the deal. Because without that document, you could get a deal locked up, think you're going to settlement, tell your seller you're ready to close, and then something about the buyer's loan falls apart. Now you're back on the phone asking for an extension. You're facing the likelihood of losing the deal. The seller's ticked off at you because they've packed and been ready to move. That buyer's disclosure is I've been doing it since 2011. So I've made all of those mistakes. Yeah. And each time, well, maybe not every time, I'm a bit of a slow learner, but after I made the mistake 2 or 3 times, I said, you know what? I don't want to do that again. I bet if I created this addendum, that would help me eliminate the fallout on the front end of these loans. And now it's part of our process.
That's brilliant. And your community is big enough too, right? So like if somebody is looking for a realtor to help them or a title company that's done this before, you've got the resources you can give to people who are in your program.
Yeah.
To find the help.
I had a title company. So my attorney that does all of my settlements is the original attorney that built Novations with me. I started the process in 2008. Here's why. Prior to 2008, every flip that I did, no one was using FHA financing. Like 2 days after the market crashed, every single buyer that made an offer on my flips was using FHA financing because that was the only mortgage you could get. And the big problem with flippers and FHA is there's seasoning requirements. You have to hold the property for 91 days, right? And I was accustomed to flipping a house in 4 weeks, selling it the next week. So now they're like, hey, you're going to have to hold these properties 4 months before you can sell them. I was frantic. Not only did the market just crash, you're telling me if I'm lucky enough to find a buyer, I can't sell it to them for 4 months. So I started that process in 2008. Early in 2008, after the crash, they announced that there was an FHA flip waiver. Congress passed a bill that said, hey, none of that seasoning requirements now for FHA because they want to incentivize investors to buy up all the bad bank-owned inventory. But that flip waiver expired in 2011, and that's when I started doing Novations.
So you don't have to worry about the seasoning.
There is no seasoning. You're never taking title.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys, listen. The link is down below. You can see it right there on the screen. There's a button below the video. I want you right now to go schedule a call with Eric's team. Eric, what happens when they schedule a call? What's the next steps? How does that work?
We'll typically take about 15 minutes. The one thing that I like to do is normally on these calls, we're going to find out a little bit about what your lead process is like, what type of staffing you're working with, how you're dispoing your deals, to make sure that this program would be a good fit. Because depending on how you're doing your deals now, this might not be a good fit for you. So we want to go through sort of a due diligence process to learn a little bit about how you're doing deals now to make sure that if you were to purchase our course, that you're going to see success with it. And then and only then would we suggest that you even consider signing up with us. So that process takes about 15 minutes. Where we're going to do some Q&A about what your business looks like. And then we kind of do like there's another 5 or 10 minutes where I'll go through how a deal starts from beginning to end. And then if they want to sign up, they can sign up. If not, no big deal.
And even if somebody's new, they can still get on the phone and talk to you guys.
I believe if you have not, right now to start as a wholesaler today could be challenging. You're going to lock up deals that look like deals and you're not going to have any buyers. I can tell you right now, when you take a good retail product to the MLS that's priced at or below the comps, it is selling, particularly to FHA, VA, conventional buyers that need a little bit of seller's help.
Excellent. All right, let's wrap this up. Eric, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Guys, again, look at the link down below, click the button down below on this video, and get on the phone with Eric Brewer and his team. All right, guys. Eric, anything, final words? You want to wrap this up?
No, I'm good. I mean, I would just tell you, one of our students coined this phrase. He said, the cool thing about this is I can now turn no's into novations. So literally one of the KPIs we have for people when they first start out is every time a seller says no to your cash offer option, you want to hold your acquisitions agents accountable to make the novation option, and you'll be floored how many people will opt into this program.
Yeah, this is brilliant. I love it. I'm so excited about this. All right. I'm recommending this to everybody I work with. Go check it out right now. Thank you, Eric. And we'll see you guys later.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.